Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're back again. Me and Dr. David. He was on my show about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. He is a structural biologist. We're talking about viruses and other things like that. Once again, thank you for coming on.
You're very welcome. It's good to be back with you again.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. So when we left off, we're talking about HIV, AIDS, and like the cure to AIDS, and how there might be a cabal or a government or pharmaceutical companies that might be hiding that. And you tell me that's not possible.
Yeah, I think that's just not representative reality. HIV represents such a difficult problem. It's a virus that has taken over the immune takes over the immune system, wipes that out, and the glory that you would get by finding a cure for that is so great that no scientist would in their right mind would turn that down.
Not even for like $100 million.
Right.
Really?
I mean, yeah. So you got to understand, in science, for scientists, it's not so much about money. Sure. I mean, some people get wealthy. Some scientists get wealthy because of something. A few.
Yeah, a few. Like
most of us don't, and most of us care more about learning and are excited about new knowledge. And the glory for us is being famous for something, for some discovery. You can think of famous scientists, Newton or Watson and Crick, who discovered the structure of DNA in the 1950s. Yeah. That's the greatest reward for a scientist, is to be well known for some discovery, and to be recognized among your peers as somebody who cracked some very difficult problem. So HIV is such a difficult virus and has eluded so many attempts to try to crack it that I think it's just unrealistic to think that some scientist would hide this for whatever reason.
For whatever reason. For money, just hide it for population control or anything like that. So that's not likely. They probably blast it all over social media. Like, hey, I invented this. Okay. That makes sense. So it's an immune system. What's the difference between HIV and like Crohn's disease? Because they're both like immune destroying conditions.
If I understand Crohn's disease right, it's maybe more of an autoimmune disease or something like that. That's where your immune system attacks itself. And so the immune system has an interesting dilemma. It's got to distinguish of all the different shapes that you have inside of us, that are inside of us, which ones belong to yourself and which ones are foreign. And so the problem with autoimmune disease is it starts to attack yourself, like it does foreign antigens, and that's the problem. And so HIV is different. HIV is a virus that targets cells. So last time we talked about how viruses target cells, and the HIV targets cells of the immune system. And so what it does is it knocks your immune system out and prevents your immune system from
rebuilding itself.
Well, yeah, or from being able to effectively fight foreign pathogens, foreign objects.
So this virus is so intelligent that it strategically attacks your immune system, and that alone?
Well, it's not. I wouldn't say intelligent, but that's just what it targets.
I mean, that's intelligence, though. I mean,
no, not necessarily, because a virus doesn't have any intelligence. A virus is just programmed to do one thing. So viruses that cause common colds are programmed to attack cells in our respiratory system. Last time we mentioned poliovirus, it's programmed to target cells of the intestine primarily, right. But it can also get into
the nervous system,
nerve cells, and kill nerve cells, right?
I was paying attention.
So for HIV, it targets specific cells in the immune system that are critical for a healthy functioning immune system. And because it knocks those cells out, then your body can't attack pathogens. In fact, the way AIDS AIDS, the disease that HIV causes, the way that was discovered is that there were people that were getting very strange tumors in strange places and other very strange diseases that other people weren't getting, and so then they traced it back to that the virus was attacking their immune system itself, which allowed these strange diseases to proliferate.
Okay. That's why people die from a common cold, because their immune system is so, I guess, depleted that they could die from like really small things that you and I would just totally fight off.
Right. That the normal, if the immune system's working correctly, it will fight against those things, and usually your immune system can handle those things. But if your immune system's suppressed, you can the virus can take over your body,
and there's no cure for that, HIV, as we know yet.
No. Now what has been effective is to target, I believe it's 3 enzymes that HIV needs to reproduce, and so you give people 3 drugs that suppress or that target 3 different processes that have to occur. All 3 have to occur for HIV to reproduce, and so you target these 3 processes, and because you're targeting 3 of them, the virus can't evolve in ways to get around it. Because there's 3 of them now, and that's very difficult for a virus to evolve 3 things at once. But if you just did one, then yes, the virus would easily overcome that and develop resistance to that treatment.
So they just build a blocker so the virus can't multiply itself.
But they've done 3 blockers.
3 blockers.
3
blockers.
3 blockers. Yeah.
Okay.
And because they're 3, it's difficult for the virus to overcome.
Is that like your T cells or your immune system, or
it's 3 processes that are, I can't remember the exact one. One is in one case, I believe there's a protein that has to be cut, and if you prevent that from happening, if you prevent that protein from being cut, the virus can't mature. And so that's just one of them, and there's a couple of others that are involved. So it's a very clever way to do it, but it's kept people alive for many years now. Many people, but they have to take this drug continually.
Like Magic Johnson and stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah. He got it years ago.
Yeah. Right.
So he got it. Yeah. Got it. Okay. Right. And there's different people that were saying that HIV might be created in a laboratory. Is that even remotely possible?
No, I don't think so. No. I mean, yes, people could, like we talked last time. We talked about the
COVID.
The COVID
and malicious intent. Yeah.
Where there's some thought that it came from a lab in China, where presumably you could pass, we call it passaging viruses, several times through cells and things that can grow the virus, and maybe somebody evolved it to get the function it has. I mean, that's the assertion, and yes, that could conceivably be done, but the idea that HIV, no. There's no evidence for that. Okay. No evidence for that.
Got it. No evidence at all. Okay.
Right.
I mean, is there possible to tell if a virus was manufactured in a laboratory? Like, because you do your structural engineering, you study the virus itself. Would you be able to tell if something was done in a laboratory? Because, by the way, he just showed me this invention. That was a microscope that was like 12, 14 feet tall. Super fancy. So,
no, that microscope couldn't answer that question.
Okay. Well, in general, it can.
There might be other tests. I think what they usually do is they find samples in the lab, and they're able to track things genetically. So that's how they're able to track certain viruses, where they come from, and so forth, and track that maybe I got it from you or you got it from me or something. That because the virus is very similar genetically to one that, say a virus you got is very similar to one I had, and so you know that it came from me, most likely.
Okay.
And so you can do kind of detective work like that, and that's how they usually do it is by sequencing genes. looking at genes.
And is there some viruses that are more prone to certain genes or certain blood types versus like other?
I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that.
So let's just say it's a virus. Me and you have two different blood types. You're A positive, I'm A negative. Is there like a virus that might affect you more than
Possibly,
it might affect me?
Sure. There could be it could be factor effects. Things like that can cause one person to be more susceptible than another.
Okay.
Sure.
Because
could be factors like that.
That could be a factor. Because what I'm asking is COVID. I mean, I still haven't done a complete grip of it. You know a lot more about it than I do. And she said there's a lot of people that got it, and it just affected them in so many different ways. Like I have a cousin, she's like 27, 28. She lives in New York, and she's very healthy. She exercises. When she got it, she was out for 2 weeks. And I meet people that are older that got it, and they're fine. Or I meet people that are younger and got it, and they're actually fine. They just kick in like a day or two. Or sometimes it doesn't affect them. They didn't even know they had it.
Right.
What's going on?
We don't know.
Well, okay.
Yeah, we don't know, and I think that might be an active area of research for the next several years. As people will probably want to investigate more of that and figure out why people are long COVID, for example, why people are affected for many months, and other people not.
Like I don't even know if I got it or not. But my dad did mention like 2 years ago I was like coughing for 3 days and I was in bed, but that was before COVID even was a thing. Yeah. So I don't know if I got it or not.
Yeah. I know a person too who had gone to Hawaii just before the main
March.
Before that March, and I think he had been in Hawaii the December or January or somewhere in that frame, and I think he said he lost his sense of smell. Yeah, so he probably had COVID.
Yeah, I think I haven't really gotten my sense of smell back completely, but yeah. So what else do we know about COVID in like the past 6 months that we've learned? Because I know you have your ear to the ground.
Well, I think we're learning. Certainly, doctors have been able to treat it better and help people survive who get the difficult form, who have to be hospitalized. I think they've learned a lot there, and certainly the vaccines have helped and give people immunity. So I think we're gradually learning more and more about it. One interesting study, I think one of the things with COVID, which was really fascinating, I think, to me anyway, is I think it was a good science lesson for the general public. I think the general public got to see science in action. There were a lot of people who jumped on, went to the lab and did a lot of hard work and enabled vaccines to be produced in very quickly. But also we got to see, as a society, we got to see that science is sometimes messy and we don't quite understand everything. So, for example, in the beginning of COVID, everybody washed surfaces down, and we had a lot of cleanliness. Things were clean. And
sanitation,
yeah. But then we learned that, we don't really need to worry about surfaces so much. It's more about airborne stuff, right? So we don't talk about the recommendations were to not to wipe down your surfaces after a while, right? So we learned things. We learned things, how it was transmitted, and because people were looking at it and people were studying it and trying to figure out how it works. So we learned that. I think we got a good lesson in society, how we, I guess I want to say it's messy, right? It's not, we don't always know everything. And I think one of the lessons that we can take from this is that some people seem to expect that science would have all the answers right at the beginning. And they didn't. Right? Should we wear masks? Should we not? Those kinds of things, right? And so I think we got to see, in that sense, science in action, that some things that were thought to be good at the beginning weren't so good at the end. And maybe next time, if we have another pandemic like this, we'll probably do things differently. Now, there's also the social aspects that were the controversial, where people were upset that they had to close their businesses, all that kind of thing, and so that will probably be continually argued and debated for the next several years.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But I think it's important to realize that scientists are human too. We don't always get things right the first time, and so we all need to be patient with each other and try to work things out on a amicable level and
you're
be
human.
nice.
You don't have all the answers, that's for sure.
No,
I mean,
we don't.
The more I talk to scientists, I know that they know a lot about a certain area. So, but the general public, when they see like someone like you with a PhD, fancy laboratory, expensive equipment, like, oh, this guy knows everything about everything. But that's not really the case.
No.
Yeah. But it's just, public perception versus the truth. What we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
We're talking about when we walked here, we're like, you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. But at the end of the day, I'd rather have the truth.
Right.
And if the truth's not so pretty, then hey, you know what? I'll take the truth. Yeah.
Right. And sometimes you have to stand up for what you believe is right.
Yeah.
No matter what the consequences are. And
yeah.
So, yeah.
As far as the mask go, I mean, I hated wearing the mask. It's just uncomfortable. I don't think anyone likes it. But it was more not to get the virus. It was more just in case you had it, you didn't know about it, to give it to other people. That's what it's coming out to be. Is that correct?
Right. To protect you from getting it, and to protect others from getting it from you. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was
and that was pretty effective.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, in my laboratory, we never shut down. We continued to operate throughout the pandemic. We had cases, four people in the laboratory got COVID at different times, though, and we never had any intra-lab transmission. And we were wearing masks continually. So I became quite a believer in masks, that they do help because one person, for example, was in the lab for an entire 5 days, the whole week, work week, and no one else got it.
Just them?
Just that person.
Just that person?
That person had it.
Maybe that person went to lunch or something.
Right, but that person on the weekend lost sense of smell and taste and realized then that this must be COVID, and sure enough, it was.
Okay.
But the rest of us were protected, probably in large part because we were wearing masks, and so was that other person, the person who had it. So yeah, I think we.
Good. Yeah. I mean, I will wear them, of course, just because I don't want to be disrespectful to anyone, and if I did have it, I don't want to give it to anyone.
Yeah.
That's just it. I mean, when I had to, I would wear it, of course. Right. But I don't like wearing masks. Like, honestly, like who would?
Right, and we all got tired of it. We're tired of it, and it's nice. Yeah, it's nice not to wear them.
Yeah. And did you hear anything about like ivermectin and that horse dewormer, and how that was like helping people? Did you hear anything about that? Or
there was some treatments that appeared to help, or that some people felt helped them, but. So here's the thing in science, too. One of the things in science is it's got to be applicable to the majority or many people, or you have to know who it would help and who it wouldn't. So just to say maybe something helps one person, or some person thinks that because they took something that's why they got better, it may or it may not be. I mean, sometimes you could get better just because your immune system is now fought off the disease effectively. And so in science, the idea is that you have to it has to be reproducible, and in general, it has to be applicable to the whole human population. You can't just.
Yeah, I get it. I feel like that's how people feel about like crash diets. It's like, I swear by this diet, it helped me lose so much weight. I take apple cider vinegar, and I've lost 15 pounds. And maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but I don't think it's applicable to everyone. You know what I mean?
Right. You have to test. You have to test, and you have to test with many people. And in Western science, in Western world, we're very careful about this. We're very careful. And in fact, probably worldwide, I think we are too.
Yeah. Well, it's just
most countries are very careful. We don't just want to throw drugs out or treatments out and have them not work, right?
Yeah.
Or find out later that that it's causing another problem.
Yeah. I feel like in poorer countries, like third world countries, people are getting hit more because apparently like they have to work in closer proximity to one another and they just pass it around.
True, but they're also not as wealthy and don't have the vaccine.
The vaccine?
Yeah, a lot of them don't have the vaccine, and so
or proper nutrients.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, things like that.
Right.
Okay. And is there any like leading news? Because we're talking in San Francisco. Apparently, it's coming back. Did you hear anything about that?
Yeah, I've heard some things that there's some cases in some places, at least, that there's more cases now, and so we may need to be careful again.
Definitely.
But maybe this is just something that, as we say, we're just going to have to live with now. This is like the colds and so forth and the flus. Maybe this is something we just have to live with. And that's a thing we have to decide as a society, right? So a scientist our job is to investigate things, to try to learn about them, how they work, and then it's our job to pass that information on, and then we all, as citizens, decide how we will respond, right?
Right.
So,
you mean as in to close down again?
Right.
Shut down businesses, or just continue to as if life is okay and some people die in the process?
Right. And I guess we have to decide how much risk do we take. I mean, we all drive cars, right? And
we all do.
And there's I don't know the statistics, but there are people who die because of car accidents and so forth, and so we accept that risk. So maybe that's something with the coronavirus now, we add to that acceptable risks.
Right. But then again, there's factors too, like at night there's more drunk drivers, or teenagers are more likely to get into car accidents. That's why their insurance is higher.
Right.
Yeah, there's those things like that. Okay. So luckily you don't have to make that moral decision.
Right. Well, that's as a society, we have to make that decision.
Okay.
Right. And hopefully we're well informed. We try to get all the data we can, and then try to make a good decision that will help.
Yeah.
Help us as a human population, human family.
Did all the governments, the world countries, actually work together as far as the COVID like information that was being transmitted? Because there's a lot of information I couldn't keep up. And after a while, it just stopped. Were they able to like communicate properly, like Europe, U.S., China, or like Australia?
Yeah, I know that there was a lot of communication, and behind the scenes, I think there was a lot between research groups and so forth. There was a lot, I think, of sharing. People wanted to help resolve this issue, try to beat coronavirus. I think there was quite a bit. Yeah.
Okay. So it wasn't like, I'm just going to keep all the information, not give it to this country. Was there any of that? Or?
I'm sure there was.
No,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So here's another point about scientists, right? Yeah. We're human beings.
Yeah.
And we have the same issues that everyone else has: envy, jealousy, envy, greed,
competitiveness. That's something big in scientists. Yeah.
Sure. So we all have that, and I think the gravity of, at least in the early days of COVID, the gravity of the situation made it so that a lot of people were motivated to work together.
Okay. Yeah, because I read a lot. We're all in this together, which is very true. We're all in this together. We don't know what the hell's going on. So people are dying left and right or getting sick. One thing I said was my mom was in the hospital for something else. She broke something in her body when she fell, and I couldn't really go visit her. And I was like, I can't even visit my mom. They just literally wouldn't let me in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Those kinds of policies were very frustrating.
Yeah.
And very difficult. Very difficult.
Very.
Yeah.
Or like people who have kids and can't really go in and visit them like before.
Right. Nursing homes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Nursing homes were bad too.
And we also see the great variety in responses. Some people didn't worry about COVID at all, but other people are terrified. Even now, many people are still terrified of it.
But there's something about you being terrified of something and your immune system just weakens. I don't know what it is, but there's a correlation there, and I've read a lot of things about that.
I don't know much about that.
Yeah, I don't know much about that either. Yeah, but I've read like if you're afraid or you're in fear or lack, your immune system kind of like breaks down. Versus imagine you're happy, you're healthy, you're exercising all the time, you get a lot of sunshine, you're automatically gonna be healthier.
Well, there's certainly the response of if you're happier,
Yeah.
You're generally healthier, and maybe vice versa.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some of that. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of people that are generally afraid. Well, my company that I work for, everyone works from home now. So, right. And actually, it's helped a lot of people too because they spend more time with their families. They don't have to come into the office, commute. There's no like work-related problems that there was back then, like whether it's sexual harassment or people falling, or like employee disputes. So it's helped some people.
Sure, and I think like everything, there's
Yeah.
advantages and disadvantages, pros and cons.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's cons of people who've been dying, which is not good.
Right.
But now you said that since more people ended up in the hospital from the second time around because of COVID, it's not as bad.
Maybe I don't know. I'm not a doctor, so I don't deal with
what I mean, like
disease.
in the ER, like versus like a year and a half ago, the ER is not as packed, right? Before apparently like it was maxed out. There's no more room for people. Right now it's a lot less, right? Like the cases.
Yeah.
That's
okay. Many fewer cases now than we had before. Right.
All right, got it. Cool. Yeah, that's really interesting. And you said you studied it, right? You studied COVID. Yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. What did you find? If you don't mind sharing that information.
So I can share one thing.
Yeah.
One thing that's been published is that I was involved in a study that was looking at this issue of viruses on surfaces. So it appears that viruses that would land on coronaviruses that would land on a surface, a lot of them would have mucus with it.
Someone coughing or spitting?
Yeah, if you cough out, right? A lot of times you get stuff that comes out that way will have mucus in it.
Uh-huh.
And mucus actually inhibits coronavirus. And so I was involved in a study that was looking at that issue and determined that yes, mucus is inhibiting the coronaviruses. And my part in that study was just to image that yes, the virus and mucus interacts. Yeah.
Okay.
So I took pictures in an electron microscope of coronaviruses interacting with mucus. In particular, it was the mucin protein that's part of mucus.
So the mucin protein would keep the COVID virus alive.
No, it would prevent it. It would prevent it from being infectious.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. So
so that would protect you. So the idea is that stuff that was landing on surfaces isn't so dangerous because it also comes with some mucus, and that is inhibiting the infection.
Got it.
Yeah, prevents it from being infectious.
So it was mainly airborne, right? Just to throw it out there.
Right. So, but stuff that comes out of people's breath, the viruses that come out of people's breath, are just floating around in the air and so forth, and aren't landing on surfaces necessarily, and that's where that is infectious because it's not protected from anything. Right. It's not covered with anything else.
Which we circle back to the masks, which if you're coughing and you're in a general public place, it's going to block out some of it at least.
Yeah. Okay. Some of that would be accompanied by mucus, but then there's also other stuff that would come out that.
Yeah. Well, at least the mask blocks some of it.
Right.
Right is what I mean.
Right.
Okay, cool. Got it. Okay. Right. So that's what you studied, and you found out that when it's in a surface area, it's really.
I just imaged the viruses interacting with the mucin protein.
Cool.
And my collaborators on the study did the other experiments where they showed that mucus, the mucin stuff, actually inhibits infection.
Okay. Yeah. And last time before we did the podcast, you were showing me all these cool structures of a virus. Mm-hmm. Is there anything unique about the COVID virus, COVID-19, like the structure of it, or?
So just to tell you about viruses, how they're put together, they are essentially a bunch of nucleic acid, a gene of some kind, either DNA or another thing that's very similar to DNA called RNA, that's packaged in some kind of a package. The packages can be proteins, or they can be membranes with proteins in the membranes. coronavirus is the latter. Its genome is surrounded by a membrane that has proteins in it. So
it's the full package.
Yeah.
Okay, not a partial one or the other. It's both.
Yeah, and
okay.
the coronavirus has these spikes on it. They're called spikes, and those are what interacts with cells and allow the virus to get into the cell to infect the cell.
But I find it fascinating at how some people are really affected by it. And like I said, they're complete fine. And I have a cousin that's super healthy. And I know she's super healthy because, I spend time with her. And she's just, she was bedridden for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
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 But it's
right. It's a different thing. But this spike protein is what people took. They took that spike protein, and by itself, actually, if you just put spike protein inside of you, it becomes a vaccine. That's what the vaccine is this spike protein by itself. So that spike protein goes around. It's not gonna make you sick, or it's not gonna give you COVID, but it gives your immune system something to recognize as something foreign, and then your immune system develops antibodies to it to protect you. So that's what a vaccine does, is you give enough of a foreign pathogen to allow your immune system to develop some antibodies against it, and then the next time when you see the real thing, then it's, I know what you are, the spike protein that's now attached to a coronavirus, then your antibodies attack that spike protein, and in the process they prevent infection of you.
Wouldn't that work the same if someone actually had COVID and then now they have antibodies?
Yes, that's what happens in a normal infection, is that your body starts developing antibodies to that foreign object, and if you survive the infection, then next time it comes around, you'll be protected because your body has developed antibodies against it.
Okay.
But yeah, in the COVID's case, of course, some people didn't survive, and that's why there was such a rush to try to develop a vaccine.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that makes sense. And do you think kids nowadays have more like allergies or asthma because like their parents don't let them go outside and play so much, so they don't get exposed to those things when they're younger? Versus like, remember when me and you were kids, our parents would be like, go outside, you play in the dirt, you come home all dirty, you probably have a worm in your pocket and things like that. Now it's like, oh my God, don't, you might get sick, this might happen.
Right. There seems to be a correlation with that. I'm not an allergist,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I can't speak very much to that other than what kind of is generally known. But yeah, that seems to be helpful, is that if you are exposed to the dirt and play in the dirt, that can help you. Now, some people that play in the dirt do get sick, and so especially if you find something in there that's not very nice, right?
But isn't the concept you do get sick and then you build a immune system to it?
You could, but again, if that's something you run into is something dangerous that actually gives you a very bad disease, then it's not so nice. That's not so good. So there is this trade-off. There's always these trade-offs in life, and that's just one of them. So
yeah, that is. Yeah, I wouldn't know how to trade that off.
But I think if it was that black and white, if it was just black and white, that everybody that plays in the dirt is healthier than people that don't play in the dirt, then I think they'd be advocating that. They'd be really strong advocating, okay, everybody make sure your kids get 3 hours of dirt every week. And I don't know that it's so simple.
It's not. Well, there's that fear factor too. And their kids. Like when COVID hit, I don't know, people's logic went out the door. With the toilet paper situation, everyone was stacking up on toilet paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was really no shortage. I mean, there was a shortage of toilet paper because people were buying like 200 cases at a time and stacking up on that. Out of all the things, not like sanitizers, not food or canned food or battery supplies, but toilet paper.
Yeah.
So there's that fear factor too. Like logic goes out the door sometimes.
Sure. And I think we can all be put in situations in our lives where we can be motivated to act poorly or to be panicked, right? And that's a difficult thing because
I understand.
Yeah.
Oh, there's that logic and that fear factor. I mean, I know most scientists were working behind the scenes because they didn't really know what was going on either. They're trying to study it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, I don't know. There's that fear factor.
Yeah, there's fear factor, and it's real with us, and we all have to kind of guard against it. Sadly, sometimes we do bad things and hurt other people in ways that we shouldn't do it, and because we're afraid, and we all have to guard against that. Try to guard against that.
Yeah, I agree. On the last note, this is about COVID too. Fauci, they're giving him a lot of grief, and they're giving him a hard time because apparently he didn't handle the whole COVID situation well. What did you notice as a scientist? I mean, he was just a scientist. The guy's not a politician. You know, he tried. I'm sure he tried to do what he could, but a lot of people are giving him a hard time. What are your thoughts on that? Like, did he handle it poorly? Did he handle it well?
Well, let's just look, I guess, what his job is. His job was to, as director of the National Institutes of Infectious Disease, right? He's to advise the government leaders about the disease itself. Well, he's a scientist. He's not a politician. He's there to advise the government about what he thinks and what other medical professions. He represents the medical field and epidemiologists and so forth about what do they think needs to be done to try to control this disease. And then it's up to government leaders to make those decisions. So I think he acted as other scientists would, and people. He was trying to just help people, protect them from the virus. Now people may not agree with some of his recommendations, and maybe again I think that gets to the how afraid were you of it? How comfortable were you with it? Right? Are you worried about it? Or if you are, then probably you want to make sure you follow what he said, and people that weren't, or maybe some of the ones that were so upset. And I think you just kind of have to look at that. And I mean, and then you also have to understand how some people were, when their businesses were closed and they were and they couldn't bring in income. I mean, that's also a big stress, right?
Social factors, huh?
Social factors,
that's a big
children that were stuck at home and going stir crazy.
That's a big factor.
There's a lot of things that have to be thought about, and
people that lost relatives, or close ones.
Yeah,
that's a big factor.
And people that were lonely. I mean, some people, especially maybe older people, that were really worried about getting the disease and were told, you're in this high risk group because of your age. They're very lonely. And that's also can be a problem.
That can be a problem.
So we have a bunch of risks to balance, and it's not easy.
Yeah,
it's not easy.
Got it.
Maybe that's another lesson: is we all just, how do we deal with this, right? We
do it the best you can, my man.
Yeah, and then of course we have on top of that the political issues where we're so divided politically.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And everything's viewed through a political lens, and if it fits your political viewpoint, you push it, and if it doesn't, you fight against it. And
yeah, I don't want to get into that, but shouldn't it be more about logic, like what's in the best interest of everyone and their health?
Right.
Like you pray for the best, but honestly, like I would say, as a scientist, you probably want to prepare for the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. And it's my job, as I heard one person say once, is if I was a scientist and was aware of a threat to humanity, it's my obligation to notify the world of that. That's my obligation.
Whether they like it or not. If you want to hurt their feelings, whatever their political party is, their stance, the truth, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Got it.
So
great. Right on, Doc. Thank you again for jumping on my podcast.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. This was a very informative podcast we just had. I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.